The time is just gone 20 minutes past 8 a.m. And this morning we start off by looking at the draft AARTO Act amendments. And we joined on the line by Howard Dembovsky, who is the chair of Justice Project SA. Howard, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning to you and good morning to the listeners.
Right, Howard, let's talk about the AARTO Act, the amendments, the draft, and looking at the confusion that the AARTO Act, and we know it has been enforced for quite a while now in Johannesburg and in Tshwane, and there is all this talk about this act now being implemented on a national basis. But even in its draft form at this point in time, we know that it is pretty confusing, and there has been a lot of debate. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding this amended AARTO Act, and perhaps if you could just take us through some of the key issues that people and motorists in general need to be familiar with.
Sure. Look, the draft regulations that have been published on the 2nd of October for public comment are open until the 1st of December for comment. And I do encourage all of your listeners to go and have a look at them and consider making submissions as to their feelings regarding these draft regulations. They can do so by going to Dear South Africa /AARTO regs. So it's actually quite easy to go there. But, in a nutshell, the AARTO Amendment Act is going to change the way in which the AARTO Act itself operates, in as much as the very first thing it's going to do is it's going to eliminate the need for the use of registered mail to post the infringement notices to people, which quite frankly doesn't even work right now, which is quite surprising. But it then introduces something called electronic service, and the definition of that is incredibly broad. It means any kind of data transmission. And, when you talk about any form of data transmission, that could even be a ripple through your electricity supply. So it's really not very clear as to how they intend doing this. But, nevertheless, if one were to just look at things like email, it introduces inherent risks because your junk mail filters could filter it out, or alternatively, it could open avenues for cyber criminals. And that, I think, is something that we need to bear in mind in South Africa's environment. The second thing that I believe people should be very concerned about is the exclusion of the criminal courts from these AARTO infringements. And it might sound like incredibly good news that the vast majority of road traffic offences are, commuted to be decriminalised. But with that goes a drawback, in as much as your right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty goes with that. And, instead it commutes everything to an administrative process. And that is quite a tight administrative process where basically within a period of a little over 60 days, you can find yourself having an enforcement order issued against your particulars, and the net effect of that is it blocks licensing transaction.
Well, certainly, Howard, but also I think one of the critical issues here has been this notice, because it all starts off with the infringement notice. And I know there has been all this talk about a 100 Rand penalty that is payable on every infringement notice that is being issued.
Yeah, that's actually quite bizarre. To turn around and say we're going to charge you additional 100 Rand just to issue you with a traffic fine, as if, it's some kind of privilege that you must pay for to be issued with a traffic fine. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And they've made it as clear as mud in the regulations as to just when this is going to kick in and how it's going to be treated. And for example, if you make a written representation and that representation is successful, are they going to write off that infringement penalty fee? Or they're going to say to you, yeah, well, okay, you were successful in making a representation, but you owe us $100 because we bothered to issue an infringement notice against you. It just sounds completely and utterly absurd. And, this is something that clarity must be given on, but it can't be clarity that comes out of the mouths of individuals at the Road Traffic Infringement Agency or individuals at the Department of Transport. It has to be written into the law in clear terms. You can't have vague legislation that's going to be implemented on the whim of officials.
Well, certainly. And also, I think the key issue here is about enforcement and the ability to enforce. Now, we know in the past there were various options that were given where, people could pay the penalty, they could get discounted rates as well. But there is a process that will obviously have to be followed before it even gets to the stage where you're looking at a court, for instance, getting involved.
Well, you see, this is just the thing. Under the AARTO Amendment Act, the involvement of the courts is not the kind of involvement that most people would tend to think might be the case. Because the first thing that one needs to bear in mind here is that you're not entitled to a trial at all. The second thing that you need to bear in mind is that the entire process starts off with making a written representation to the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. And if you don't do that, then you don't get access to the pop-up tribunal, which is now going to be a feature of this particular AARTO Amendment Act. And, furthermore, if you can't get access to that tribunal, you can't get access to the magistrate's court, because you can't just summarily say, listen, I want the magistrate's court to deal with this issue. You have to go through all of the rigmarole to make a written representation, and if that's unsuccessful, then apply for an appeal or review to this pop-up tribunal. And then if you're unsuccessful there, then within 7 days, make an application to the magistrate's court for review or application of or appeal of your case. And the really funny part of this, and when I say funny, it's actually not funny, but perhaps the word's change part of it, is that if the tribunal does not rule in your favor, then it instructs the Road Traffic Infringement Agency to issue an enforcement order, and that enforcement order blocks licensing transactions and remains in place while you're making application to the magistrate's court to settle the matter, which could take 6 months, 8 months, a year.
Exactly.
What is the point? What is the point? It's just a totally ridiculous situation. And I really don't wish to insult anyone, but I don't think that the people who drafted this have thought this matter through at all. And in fact, they actually write it into this regulation that the magistrate's court is the end of the road for you. Well, you know what? If you get a judgment against you in the magistrate's court, you have the right of appeal to the High Court. And then if you wish to go further, the Supreme Court of Appeal and the Constitutional Court. So who on earth is the Department of Transport to come along and say, no, 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 we're going to screw with the entire South African justice system and court system, and we're going to say, no, no, no. If you get to the magistrate's court and you're not successful, well, that's the end of the road for you, sonny boy.
Well, it all sounds like a military operation to me because, when you're using the word tribunal, for instance, and we know that it has connotations with the military and the like. And it does appear, Howard, that this is becoming a lot more draconian just to manage things like traffic infringements and fines and the like.
Well, let me just put things bluntly to you. The maximum amount of money that you can be fined is 3,750 rand. This is under the AARTO regulations, the draft for AARTO regulations. And you can't make a representation on multiple alleged infringements, and you can't lump them together when going to the tribunal and or to the magistrate's court. In fact, and the magistrate's court, there's no or to it. Now, if your fine amount is 1,000 rand, who in their right mind is going to want to go to the magistrate's court? And I can guarantee you they're going to have to spend 30,000 rand or more instituting a review application on 1,000 rand fine.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that the legislature have sat down and have said to themselves, well, how best can we actually force people to pay traffic fines, whether they are have actually committed a violation or not? All we're interested in is the money. So how best can we put a gun to their head? Because you call this a military operation. I think it's more of a terrorist operation, to be honest with you, because they put a gun to your head and they tell you, listen, cough up, otherwise we're going to make your life a living hell.
Well, Howard, we can still go on, but I'm sure, with all the submissions that are going to be made, and there is going to be a lot of further discussion on this particular matter. But for now, we thank you, as always, for your time with us and coming on and talking to us about this draft AARTO Act amendment. All the best to you. Take care.
Thank you. And just, if I may remind everybody, go to dearsouthafrica.co.za/AARTO regs and put your submissions in. Surprisingly, there are only somewhere in the order of 10,000 submissions so far. Well, let me let you into a little secret. There's nearly 13 million licensed drivers in South Africa at the moment.
Well, yes, definitely. I think an important point that you raised there as well. But all the best to you. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Howard Dembovsky joining us this morning, explaining how this draft AARTO Act is supposed to work. We come back, we'll be joined by Jasmine Opperman and talking about going deep into Mozambique's Cabo Delgado territory and looking at what is happening in that part of the world.